Welcome to the debut episode of BrownsLab.com with our star of our show here, Peanut, the Browns fan Labrador Retriever. He's going to be with us today, off and on. And Aaron, the host of Browns Lab. We're going to be going through a few different questions today, and go from there. We'll be analyzing those in our Browns Lab. All right. First question is, how will the Browns survive the Madden curse? Madden 2012 has Peyton Hillis on the cover of Madden. First time a Browns player has ever been on the cover of Madden since the game's history, like in the early 90s. Fantastic. I thought it was going to be years before the Browns could ever win a Super Bowl and therefore be on the cover. But this year they decided to vote on basically the fans' favorite player. And Peyton Hillis, above all the other players in the NFL, actually won. So it's really cool to see that. But the wonderful thing about the Browns, sort of, is that they're already cursed. So the fact that, the Madden curse comes to our already cursed team, double curse breaks a curse, double jinx breaks a jinx, we're finally good. We're finally on the right track to winning. So, all right. Next question is, what positions will the Browns address in free agency? Okay, the NFL lockout should end, hopefully, by next week. And then the Browns, of course, will be free agency. The Browns will look at different positions throughout there. A couple positions that come to mind right away is safety. A.B. Elam is our current free safety, the one that does mostly like the coverage of helps in coverage of wide receivers. He's all around he played okay last year. He played pretty good, probably pretty good for A.B. Elam. But overall, he's pretty just mediocre all the way around. There's a couple safeties they're looking at is Donte Whitner from the Bills, who was actually drafted by current defensive coordinator Dick Jauron of the Browns' current coordinator Dick Jauron. Drafted Whitner and everything, so you have a connection there. But the problem with Donte Whitner, even though he's very talented, he's sort of the same kind of safety as T.J. Ward is. Kind of a strong safety, more really good at run support, really hard hitter. But overall, his coverage skills maybe slightly better than A.B. Elam, but not really much better on a whole. The other guy I want to look at is Quinton McKell from the Eagles. He's more of a free safety, and he was actually acquired with our current general manager, was with the Eagles, Tom Heckert. He actually acquired McKell, and he's more of a free safety kind of guy, much better at coverage than probably Whitner or Abe Elam. However, he's probably not all around as talented as Donte Whitner, but nonetheless, he's probably a little better fit with T.J. Ward. He's much better at coverage. Another position that I want to look at is the linebackers. I think the Browns are pretty satisfied with the linebackers they have, DeQuell Jackson and Scott Fujita. But outside of that, we really could use some more depth. So look for them to get like a good veteran or an up and coming linebacker that will be a good second or third string linebacker. Possibly running back as well. We have the two big backs in Peyton Hillis and Montario Hardesty. But we'll probably need a third guy, maybe like a little bit change of pace, maybe a quicker guy, maybe a little bit smaller. That would work good in that situation. And Heckert really, Tom Heckert, general manager, he's probably one of the better general managers in the league. We're pretty lucky to have him here at the Browns. Even though he's only been with us for about a year and a half. But he'll pick the best player that he finds. He won't just pick only for needs and just pick some average guy that. In a position they need. He'll pick like the best one around. He likes to build the teams through the draft, and so far we've had good drafts and whatnot. But I think he'll probably do that. A lot of people would say that the Browns look for a wide receiver in free agency, but Heckert himself, as well as some of the coaches, said they're pretty happy with the wide receivers they have. Which brings us to our next question: how can the Browns win with such bad receivers? The Browns have many times been ranked as probably having the worst receivers in the league. I'd say definitely that the wide receivers that the Browns have are not the strength of the team by any means. But considering the offense they had last year, and it was terrible. It was one of the worst offenses, especially for receivers. It was very just kind of the same thing over and over. You knew exactly what was going to happen. A lot of times they didn't pass until third down. Really more of a running offense. And when they did, they would throw 10 yards deep into the sidelines every time. And or they'd have a tight end go across the middle. It was a very bad offense for receivers. This year with the new coach Pat Shurmur, we're running a West Coast offense, a very pass-friendly offense, one that even mediocre receivers have have been able to win. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles; they won for years with a West Coast offense, and their receivers were arguably like worse than the Browns have right now. So, it's definitely an offense that helps receivers. I think most receivers that were pretty good last year would have been bad in the Browns one. Maybe only like very, very exceptional receivers would have still had success in the Browns. Just very poor offense. It's amazing that Brian Daboll, their offensive coordinator from last year, actually has a job this year with the Miami Dolphins. The offense is pretty bad. Okay, next question was another with free agency. What about the Browns acquiring Reggie Bush? Okay, Reggie Bush was a highly, highly talented player coming out of college. He's more or less underachieved since then. He's a really quick guy, great punt returner. He's been injured a lot, and really not quite the same player at the NFL level that he was in college level. Something that happens quite a bit. But what about the Browns getting him? A couple problems there is that he has been injured a lot, and that sort of kind of puts a little damper in some teams getting him. And the other thing is that he's still come pretty expensive to the Browns. When the Browns were already pretty happy with Peyton Hillis and Montario Hardesty. I know Montario Hardesty missed most of the season last year. He should be back totally healthy this year. So it looks like they have two pretty good running backs in there already. And although they could use him as a third running back, I don't think Reggie Bush would want to come to the Browns as a free agent to be more or less their third string running back that would be also used as a wide receiver occasionally as well. All right, and the last question here, this question actually comes from my wife. Will the Browns win a game this year? So, yes, I'm hoping, that this is the answer. But in all seriousness, the Browns have a much easier schedule this year than they have in the years past. The NFL, you never know what teams are going to be good, what teams are bad. There's so many years where teams are supposed to be like the best team in the league, ends up just playing terrible, like the Cowboys and the Vikings did last year. Those are two teams that went deep into the playoffs last year and then end up just being awful last year. And then on the flip side, we had a couple teams last year. The Browns started the year out against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Both those teams had worse records than the Browns did the previous year, but yet the Chiefs made the playoffs, and the Buccaneers were about a half game away from making the playoffs. So you never knew who was going to win, but this year we're playing the Dolphins, the Titans, the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Bengals twice. All those are definitely winnable games. I counted about 10 winnable games altogether. Browns will probably win about 2/3 of those winnable games, and then maybe they'll beat one team that they weren't really supposed to beat. Sort of like we beat the Saints and the Patriots last year. Teams that you look back and you have no idea how they won. The Patriots only lost 2 games all year, but somehow they lost to the Browns last year. Fantastic game to see in person, by the way. So it should put the Browns about 7-9 or 8-8. Either way, it's pretty awesome as a Browns fan. You just hope for mediocre. If my team can only be like a middle team, maybe barely win half their games, I'll be so happy. So, such is the life of a Browns fan. But that'll be all for our debut episode of BrownsLab.com with our star of the show here, Peanut, the Browns fan Labrador. So long. See you next time. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, is that we do have. If you have any questions that you'd like to hear the answers to, Browns. The email address is brownslab@yahoo.com. So, all right.